We've talked often on this channel about borderline personality disorder, and we've talked often on this channel about narcissism. But what happens when a borderline meets a narcissist? How does that relationship work? And what ends up happening between those two people? Hi friends, Berges here today. And before we jump in to the conversation today, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really allows us to know that we're doing something right. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up on this video. That's awesome. And please don't hesitate to comment as well. I usually try to get back to comments as much as I possibly can, and I definitely want to hear from you. So let's deep dive on this conversation today. Okay, we normally talk about borderlines, we normally talk about narcissists, but let's talk about when they meet. Let's talk about when they join in a relationship. How does that relationship look? Okay, first off, the borderline usually is amazed by the confidence that the narcissist has. So they see that the narcissist has all this confidence and they seem to be so calm about it. They basically are seeing everything that they feel like they are not. Okay, so think about that. If I meet somebody and the other person has all these qualities and characteristics that I don't think that I have, that's going to draw me in a lot quicker because I'm going to feel like, oh, well, this person, fulfills me. This person does all these things that I can't do. So they're basically seeing the qualities that they feel are absent in their life. And it's interesting because of that, the narcissist basically validates the character kind of the character of the borderline. And so that's very interesting to think about. So think about that part. Now let's add these other parts in. Both of them, so both the narcissist and the borderline individuals, they do tend to form intense attachments extremely quickly. Okay, so usually they'll meet. It's an intense, quick relationship. They already have intense, deep feelings, and they might not have known each other that long. It could be a few weeks, maybe a month, and they quickly form this intense romantic attachment. Very, very intense. And the interesting part about it is usually they don't have a lot of information on each other. And it was interesting because recently I was talking to a friend of mine that has jumped into this relationship very quickly, and I was able to finally see it as I stepped back to understand the situation. And I said, how much do you know about this person? And started asking questions, and really, quite honestly, they didn't know a lot. And it was just this intense romantic connection that they had that kind of, you forget about all the other things that you really need to know before you jump into a relationship. Now, the borderline, as we know, loves to be in love. They love the concept of love. They love the concept of unconditional love, even if they don't give it to themselves. And even if they don't know how to give it to themselves and they don't unconditionally love themselves, they still want that intensity from someone else. And ultimately, this comes down to what? Trying to avoid loneliness, trying to avoid feeling empty and sad. And so remember, when that person has a love interest in their life, they don't have to look at what's missing here because this person is there in their life and they can just kind of offset that and focus on that person being around. The interesting part, though, too, is that the borderline can feel, though, sometimes, especially over time, like in the beginning, in the beginning of the relationship, it's one thing, but over time, they can start feeling that they're not that happy in a relationship with a narcissist. And so over time, they can feel that way, but then their fear flares, right? So that fear of abandonment flares up and they'll can continue to accept a lot of the personality of the narcissist. Remember, in these types of relationships, when it comes to a narcissist or it comes with a borderline, the narcissist is usually going to ultimately leave the relationship before the borderline because the borderline is scared of the detachment based on the abandonment. Now, on the flip side, let's think about the narcissist, right? So the narcissist doesn't choose the person because of the love quotient. They choose that person because of the appeal that person has to them. The appeal. They also choose that person maybe with even status, okay? The status that person has, or the status that they believe that they have. The narcissist also needs something very big, and that is self-esteem. So they have low self-esteem, and they need help with that. Now, the borderline is going to be great at that because remember, the borderline looks up to the narcissist because the narcissist has all this confidence. They're oozing confidence that the borderline doesn't have. So they're ultimately going to sit there and say how great the person is and patting them on the back and how amazing they are and how smart they are. And it's interesting when I do talk with clients who are in these types of relationships, the things that I constantly hear out of their mouth, the people that might display more signs and symptoms of BPD say, oh, well, they're so confident. Oh, but they're this. Oh, but they're a CEO. Oh, but they're a doctor. But they're this. But they're so smart. So it's all these things that this person has that they don't feel like they have. Not to say that this person isn't smart, just to say that that's what they're seeing, is that they feel like these are the inadequacies that they have, and they see that this person has that, and they really, really love that. And the narcissist loves it too because it makes them feel better about themselves. So see how this is working? But the interesting situation we have here, break it down, is the fact that the borderline ultimately wants love and somebody to be there so they're not alone. The narcissist just wants somebody to be there to build them up. And so this can last for a while, but eventually something's got to give. And ultimately, for both individuals, the biggest thing and the biggest challenge that they have is being able to see each person, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, together. So that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Is being able to see that person, all aspects, all facets, being able to see them for who they are, and not going from extremes, right? We're not going to sit there and villainize a person. We're not going to sit there and put them on the pedestal, right? And so that's what happens a lot of times, right? Because we put them on the pedestal and we don't see these faults, or we get upset and angry and we pull them off the pedestal. And that's the whole concept of whole object relation, right? So that's the concept of that. But that's one of the biggest issues that we have in this relationship, is being able to see all facets of someone and also being self-aware of why we put ourselves in this relationship in the first place. So ultimately in the relationship, both people come together really, really quickly in the relationship because they're both getting something that they want, but over time that can slow down more for change or ultimately break down. I hope that you feel that this video has illuminated some of these aspects of this type of relationship. You may be dealing with it. You may have a friend dealing with it. And it happens, and sometimes it's hard to understand why things happen, but it's good when we can put it into context and understand what the struggle is of each individual. We all have struggles, and we all have issues, and we have to deal with it. And so I don't like to label, but we're all on these different programs, right? And I consider borderline a program, and I consider narcissism a program, and I consider codependency a program. But we're looking at these programs and understanding why the person does what they do. Don't forget to live your true life.